Okay. I will now call this meeting to order. And it is the Finance and Administration Committee special meeting of the board of directors, and it is November 15th. Excuse my voice, please. It's that time of the year. So we will, I guess we'll call for a quorum.
Happy to do that, Mr. Chairman. Director Harold Williams.
Here.
Chairman Scott Houston. Director Gloria Gray.
Here.
Director Don Deere. Here. Director Scott Houston. Oh, I apologize. Director Desi Alvarez. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Okay. And we will move on to public comment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there have been no requests submitted for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's anybody that would like to make public comment, both here at our Donald L. Deere building or virtually, please indicate so now. And Mr. Chairman, I do not see any requests for public comment.
How about presentations?
Mr. Chairman, we do not have any presentations today.
Okay, then we'll move on to action items, and I will give control of the agenda to our general manager.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The first item that we have is item 5A. It's approval of minutes. For this presentation, we have Desiree Quintero, our board secretary.
Good morning, members of the committee. I'm required to have our approval of the minutes, which begins on packet page 3 of your agenda. The minutes for the West Basin Municipal Water District Board of Directors meetings are an integral part of the public meeting process. Minutes provide a history of the actions taken at board meetings, which is informative not only for members of the public, but for other stakeholders as well. Today, we bring for your consideration the October 23rd, 2023 regular board meeting minutes, which can be found beginning on packet page 5. I will read the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board approve the October 23rd, 2023 regular board meeting minutes.
Gloria Gray, you're the alternate.
That is correct. She is.
Okay, well, I'll move the minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And we'll confirm that with Director Gray as well. The next item that we have before you is item 5B. It's a renewal of the agenda management system license with Granicus. And for this presentation, we have Hazel Vasquez, our deputy board secretary.
Okay, good morning, Director Williams, Director Deere, and anyone else joining us online. If I could turn your attention to packet page 10, where this item begins. So we do have for your consideration today the renewal of the agenda management system license with Granicus. West Basin currently licenses with Granicus for the agenda management system utilized by the district, which is IQM2. The agenda management system allows staff to automate the process of preparing, editing, and approving staff reports, agendas, and minutes for the various board and committee meetings, sharing recordings of board and committee meetings directly to the district website, and provides access to the public and other stakeholders to view past meeting reports, agendas, and minutes. The current license that we have with Granicus will conclude on December 29th, 2023. And at this time, staff is seeking the board's approval to renew that license. Now, I did want to share that back in October this past month, we were notified by Granicus that they intend to cease support for the system that we use for IQM2 in September of 2025. So staff will begin to explore alternative products at the beginning of 2024 so that we can get an idea of what's out there, both in services, what is available to us, as well as in cost. So our plan at this time is to go out to issue a request for proposals in 2024, either the second half or later in the first half of 2024, but we do plan to go out for proposals. So with that, staff recommends 1 additional year with the current license that we have with Granicus beginning on December 30th, 2023, and running through December 29th, 2024, in the amount of $61,249.60 for a new not to exceed amount of $261,100.04. Oh, sorry about that. As far as this system, we've been using it since back in 2017 when we initially acquired this system with Acela. It was shortly after purchased or acquired, I should say, by Granicus, and we've been using it since. Aside from the ceasing of support that's coming in 2025, staff doesn't have any true complaints. The system has done what we've needed it to do and has worked well. It has provided that ease for staff to be able to process these staff reports and agendas, which is why we are here today requesting this renewal. So with that, I will read the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to revise purchase order number 12500 to include the renewal of the agenda management system license with Granicus for the period of 1 year, beginning December 30th, 2023 and ending December 29th, 2024, in the amount of $61,249.60 for a new not to exceed amount of $261,100.04. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you for the report. I see here that the item was prepared by Vasquez and it was submitted by Quintero and reviewed by Caldwell.
That is correct.
I'm all for it.
It'd be very difficult for West Basin to accomplish all that it does during each month without a service and software like this. It helps us to organize. It helps us feed all of the different board memos that you see each month through a very specific process. We recognize that we'll need to change in the future, but we think for the next year, everybody's very comfortable with the product that we're using.
Great.
Hello?
Director Gray, you heard the report?
Yes, I agree. I support the recommendation.
Okay, then we move on to the report. Full board. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The last action item that we have for you is item 5C. It's an update to the Small and Community Bank Investment Program. You might recall that we did provide this committee a presentation just last month, but we're returning with an update. And so for this presentation, we have Sandra Ruiz, our accountant too.
Hi, good morning, members of the board. I'm here to present agenda item 5C, which you'll find on packet page 17, an update to the Small and Community Bank Investment Program. The program was developed and adopted with the purpose of investing funds in banks who in turn invest in our service area. As you will recall, as EJ mentioned, October 18, F&A committee staff shared a presentation information on the 2 current participating banks. The presentation also includes information on 3 potential new banks interested in participating in the program. In addition, Pacific Premier Bank was in attendance at that meeting, and they also expressed interest in participating in the program. We have reviewed Pacific Premier's financials, and like so many other banks, they would not fall under the definition of a small bank, but under the policy, they will be a community bank that met certain criteria as stated with section 1B of the policy. Today, we would like to share some information from Pacific Premier Bank. We have, I believe, a handout and some slides, if we could bring that up. So the next slide would be some company statistics in reference to Pacific Premier. They were founded in 1983. They have 60 branches across California. El Segundo, Rolling Hills Estates, Redondo Beach would fall within our service area. Total assets, 22 billion. Total loans, 13.4 billion. Their CR rating as of 2021 was outstanding. We would be looking at a potential investment of $245,000 staying within the FDIC limits. The rate would be 5%, and the terms that they're offering are between 6 to 15 months. The next slide includes some of their 2022 accomplishments, community involvement. Their employees joined the Heal the Bay for its Coastal Cleanup Day. They've partnered in an 8-month financial literacy and entrepreneur program with California high school seniors. Pacific Premier and the LA Chargers teamed up to connect fans with volunteer opportunities. Volunteer hours totaled 740 hours, and they facilitated 54 grants totaling 1.2 million in down payment assistance through their Workforce Initiative Subsidy Home Ownership Program. With that, I'll pause if there's any questions about Pacific Premier.
Questions? Director Here,
No questions, thank you.
Director Gray,
No question. Thank you.
Okay, if I could ask you to go to packet page 18. The committee directed staff to reach out to the now 4 potential new banks to attain updated interest rates, terms, and confirm their interest in the program. The committee also requested a site visit with checklist. We reached out to each bank to confirm the rates, terms, and their interest, and they were still interested, and their rates were in line with what we presented. So those have been are listed here in this table. So they're pretty good rates. In addition, the committee also requested that we come up with a checklist of items that we can conduct in a potential site visit. So I will go through those potential items right now. The first thing is appearance and cleanliness, both indoors and outdoors of the facility. Another item would be accessibility and convenience. Are these banks easily accessible for their customers? Are they located in an area that is convenient for their customers? Next item would be ATM availability. Do they have an ATM outside? Do they offer ATM services? Initial greeting by the bank staff. You know, are you welcomed as soon as you walked in? Is there professionalism of the bank staff? And the last item was security presence. Staff is seeking the board's direction on proceeding with the 4 banks and coordinating site visits. With that, I'll pause, or I can read the recommendation if you'd like.
please read the recommendation.
Staff recommends that the board authorize the deputy treasurer to coordinate site visits and negotiate terms for a $245,000 investment with the following banks: Farmers and Merchant Bank, First Foundation Bank, and Pacific Premier Bank Corp. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Or Mary Ann, do you have any?
Thank you.
I have a question I could ask maybe the staff. Is the difference in percentage significant? 1% is a lot of money, isn't it?
Sorry, is 1%?
1% difference between say 4 and 5 that they're all right there.
Well, with each of the banks, they have different purposes, and some are more aggressive in getting deposits, some are less aggressive. Also depends on the timing. Some of the banks do update their rates more often. We'll definitely reach back out before we make the investment to see if there's any increase in the rates. And as always, I try to negotiate a better rate. This is just based on a phone call that Sandra did and reached out to them. But when I make that call, I try to arrange a better rate. So.
Thank you. Director Gray,
Yes, thank you. It's kind of a general question. How many community banks are in Division 2 that have a relationship with West Basin?
Director Gray, I think we'd have to get back to you. Well, I know we did an analysis last year when we brought this item to the board originally to look at additional banks, but specifically how many banks are in Division 2, I don't know off the top of my head. So we'll have to get back to you on that information.
And then the other question is, how do we get the information out that we're interested in banks being a part of partnering with West Basin, or do they just contact us? Or what's kind of the process by which a bank can have that opportunity to work with West Basin?
So what we did last year when we presented to the board expanding the program, we looked specifically at those banks within the service area. And then we checked to make sure if they qualified for the program, because you remember, we do have a policy. And those banks that qualify within the program, we tried to target those that weren't really big, like between 20 and maybe 50 billion, which sounds big to me, but according to the FDIC, isn't all that big. And then we reached out to each of those. We made sure that their CRA rating was at least a satisfactory, if not that outstanding as well. And then we made phone calls. And we were able to, as Sandra mentioned, we've identified 3 and now an additional 1 that's interested in the program.
Okay, well, maybe you can tell me if out of those phone calls you made to banks in District 2, how many of them responded and whether or not when you come back or provide the information, if they're part of our banking program. And if they're not, what was the hindrance to them not being a part of our program?
We could put that information together, yes.
Thank you.
Whether or not they have been involved in the past.
But okay, we can add that as well.
Anything else? Anyone else? Questions? Well, this would not stop us from going forward with the recommendation.
That is correct.
Recommend that we move on to the full board.
Okay, that brings us to our information calendar, item 6 on today's agenda. The first item on there is 6A. It's the cost of service study. And for this presentation, we have Mary Ann Rexroad, our manager of finance, as well as Bartle and Wells.
Thank you, EJ. Good morning, members of the board and committee. As EJ mentioned, I'll be presenting on item 6A, cost of service. This item begins on packet page 20. Today, we want to resume our discussion regarding the cost of service study process. You may recall at your September 13th F&A committee meeting, the team of Hazen and Sawyer and Bartle Wells presented their review of West Basin's fiscal policies. The discussion centered around primarily the reserves, which sometimes we note as cash on hand, as well as the debt service coverage. At that meeting, the committee did request a comparison of both West Basin's reserves and debt coverage to other similar water agencies. In today's presentation, it will include that requested comparison, as well as other high-level discussion of financial plans and cost allocations. As EJ mentioned, we do have Bartle Wells with us today virtually. Eric Helgeson will walk us through that presentation.
Thank you, Mary Ann, and thanks for having us back. I'll bring my screen up here. All right, so as Mary Ann stated, I'm going to go into overview of our approach to financial plans and cost allocation, and then go into the liquidity survey. As we're reviewing the different processes and just the customers and makeup of the district, we identified a few principles which I think will guide us to ultimately developing the best rates outcomes for the district. The first being that the rates need to have full cost recovery. And as we'll get into the liquidity, likely need to be set to actually increase some reserves. Also, rates we should aim to have improved revenue stability and predictability, also for the district, and then improve rate stability and predictability for customers. Sometimes, there are increased risks by having certain things be based on volumetric charges, and we're looking at potentially different fixed charge or direct reimbursement options for certain costs. Also, having the rate process be as easy to understand, so if other people want to look at it, and they can follow how we get from the costs to the rates. And equitable cost allocation. We want the rates to reasonably reflect the cost of providing service to each customer. We want rates to also be simple, easy to understand and administer, and aim to have them be as legally defensible as possible, while balancing the different risks with different objectives of the district. Nothing is completely without risk, and that's also an approach we're taking with the revenue stability, looking to limit the risk of variable revenues and variable costs to the customers with having rates be unpredictable sometimes. So as we go into the financial plan, we looked at all of the district's different processes, and it appears that every process has its own unique operating costs and capital needs. So as we approach this, we rather than looking at a common financial plan for nitrified water, it really appears that there needs to be independent cost-based rates for each specific process. This chart, I think it was from your budget document, I think does a really good job of showing how you have how your processes flow how your system flows into each specific process. And it also shows that you have some costs that are shared by everyone and some costs that are shared by a number of processes, such as Title 22 costs. And there are a number of costs that are specific to each process. So as we're approaching this, we're looking to identify what are the actual costs that really fit under those different categories. What are straightforward and reasonable ways to make the different allocations to those categories, and then how do we turn those into rates? As far as recycle customers, one thought as we're looking at this is potentially looking at developing rate components for the shared processes, and then looking at some different options for the process specific costs. So that's kind of a high level overview of where we're at and how we're approaching this project. And the next step is really determining current costs and for each layer and a recommended approach for rate setting going forward. Going into the liquidity survey, we looked at a number of different agencies and reviewed their days cash on hand, which is looking at how many days of operations can their reserves support. So it's the operating and the reserves is what that is giving a picture of. West Basin is at the lower end. I think it's above Cayugas, but of that metric. We also looked at debt service coverage. So when you take the district's revenues less its expenses, how can it cover its debt service payments? And the West Basin can cover its payments about 1.47 times, which is also on the lowest end of the agencies we surveyed. And correspondingly, all the agencies had a bond rating of AA- up to AAA, and West Basin was on the AA- rating. So really what that tells us is that the district has tighter liquidity than some of its peer agencies, and will likely need rate revenue increases to support capital and increased operating costs. There's not flexibility really for much use of reserves or additional debt. And that concludes my presentation.
So if I could just add a couple comments. So as Eric had highlighted that comparison, I wanted to just keep in mind what we talked about back in September. The rating agencies have their way of grading us. As you saw, we have a AA- with S&P. We do have a AA, solid AA with Moody's, but we were highlighting S&P. And we do make certain metrics, as he pointed out. But they do look at us kind of like we mentioned on a curve, if you will. So you can see we're at the lower end of the curve. We want to move our way towards the top of that curve, if you will. So this won't happen overnight. We want to work on this, over a number of years. And so this is the first step in getting us in the right direction with adopting our rates. But we did want to share with you where we're at now, and hopefully, we can improve that in the following years.
Marion, if I could just add one thing. Yesterday there was a robust discussion at Metropolitan Water District regarding their long-range financial plan. And in providing the board with several different strategies, they looked at that debt coverage. And I think that they plotted 3 different examples of a 1.5, a 1.75, and a 2. And their next slide, they kind of depict, you would never want to go to a 1.5. And so then they move forward with just the 2 options of a 1.75 and the 2.0. And so I think that as we move into the new year and we begin to talk about our next year's budget, we'll want to revisit that. Obviously, we have discussed this as part of our former strategic plan, or our most recent strategic plan, but we'll want to revisit this discussion about where we want to be financially and how we want to plan for the future. So thank you very much for the presentation and comments, Marianne. I don't know if any of the members of the committee or board have any comments.
From Director Deere, how about Director Gray?
Thank you for the presentation with no comments but that. Thank you.
Okay, so since we will be having a engineering and operations committee meeting on the 21st, I would like for this presentation that we just had to be presented there too.
That we can do because we have not yet posted that agenda, and so we can add that there.
Thank you. That would be a good idea.
That committee, Harold?
21st.
Understood.
Isn't it? Correct?
We have the calendar, I don't have it on this.
Oh, that's different.
It's a different calendar.
Give me the right one, would you please?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Will do.
I guess it's
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that brings us to the next item on our information counter, which is item 6B. It's our quarterly debt report. And for this presentation, we have Wendy Nakamura, our principal accountant.
Okay. Good afternoon, directors. Agenda 6B is starting on page 32 of your package. As requested by West Basin Debt Policy, Finance Department is required to submitting a quarterly report to the board. So we attach the first quarter of the fiscal year 24 on page 34 of your package. On page 34, we lay out all 5 West Basin outstanding debt obligations, which including the refunding revenue bond of 2016A, 2021A, and 2022A. Also, we're adding a new one into this chart, which is the Clearwater State revolving loan of $3.6 million. We also have a commercial paper line credit, which is we have a 0 balance at this time. So as of June 30, 2023, the total outstanding principal is $178 million. West Basin making bond payment twice a year, on February 1st and August 1st. So on February 1st, we pay interest only. August 1st, we pay principal and interest. I just want to mention the new item we add on to the page 32, the Clearwater State revolving loan. West Basin receiving the $7.3 million in July 2023 from State Water Board. This money is for the Carson Phase 2 project, which West Basin applied a $23 million fund from the State Water Board. Within the $23 million, $7 million is the grant, and then the $15 million is the loan with 1% interest rate.
Point to that on the graph, please.
So this page, the column on the left, second column.
Dr. Williams, just to add to that, as Wendy mentioned, we did receive about $7 million. Half of that went to the grant and the rest applied to the loan. And each time we get a payment, whatever is part of the loan, this amount will change the amount outstanding. So it'll increase as we receive those monies. This just shows the first payment we received.
Okay. Thank you.
Please turn to page 35 on your package. On this page, you can see at the end there was a $79 million. So this is calculated based on the current debt policy, which is we presenting this information to the board. If the board decided to issue more debt in the future, the maximum amount of variable rate bond that we can issue is going to be $79 million based on the current policy. That is conclude my presentation. If you have any question, I can answer.
Questions? And Director Gray?
No questions. Thank you for the information.
I have none. Move on, please.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the next item that we have is item 6C. It's our fiscal year 2023-2024 first quarter budget to actual results. And for this presentation, we have Allison Tong, our accountant too.
Good afternoon, directors and members are here today. I am presenting, like EJ said, on item 6D. It starts on your packet page 37. There you'll find the memo for this report, but we can move on to the presentation starting packet page 39 over the details. So here you see on the screen packet page 40 as well for those following the paper. You'll see the summary for the debt coverage ratio for our actuals for the first quarter, which is July 1st through September 30th, and our year-to-date budget benchmark and our annual budget as well on the far right. You'll see our operating revenues was about 57.3. The budget was 65.9. Our operating expenses was 49.9, and in our actuals, and our budget for the quarter was 57.9. We also had non-operating revenues, about 3.5 in our actuals and 2.9 for our budget. So if you look at our net revenues prior to our debt service, it was about 10.9, which matched our benchmark for the quarter of 10.9 as well. Same thing for debt services, we did have actuals about 5.3, and our benchmark was 5.3 as well. Lastly, if you look at the very bottom, you'll see that our debt coverage ratio was 2.05, and our benchmark was 2.05 as well. In the following slides, we'll go more in detail about the operating revenues and water sales and expenses, but I can pause for any questions.
Director Gear.
Yes.
Director Gray.
No, thank you.
So starting packet page 42, we'll dive a little bit more into our operating revenues for the first quarter. For potable water sales, our actuals was 44 million, and our year-to-date budget was about 49. For recycled water sales, we see about 12.4. Mark was about 13.9. I want to let you know we're going to go more in details in the following slides, but I do want to point that out to you. We also had You'll see that for our water use efficiency income, we didn't have any for the first quarter, but just to let you know, some of these programs didn't start until later, so we do expect that. And for others, you'll see that we had about 79,000 that came in, and that's more from our sponsors for Water Harvest. We do expect a little bit more to come in. If you turn to packet page 43, we'll go more in details about our operating revenues in terms of our imported water sales in acre feet. You'll see that our total imported acre feet for actuals for the first quarter is about 26,000 was sold. Our year-to-date budget was 29,472. It is a unfavorable variance of about 12.1. However, we kind of look back, and as you recall from Sandra's report about the water sales, we had a very mild summer, which kind of leads to why we have this variance. And of course, we just came out of a drought, and so we still have some habits that our purveyors are not using, which is a good thing, I think, overall. Actually, and Matt shared yesterday during Met's meeting was that overall for the SoCal region, water use was low. And pause here for any questions. I will move on to packet page 44, and we'll go into operating revenues, more about recycled water sales acre feet. Here you see a total recycled water sales was about 8,553. We did have a budget about 9,108, which is unfavorable variance about 6.1%. But as you can see, it's really only 555 acre feet, which is not too bad, considering, again, mild summer does affect water use. We had very minor leak repairs, so it's shutdowns with barriers, disruption. So overall, not too bad. On your packet, page 45, it goes in more in detail, the breakdown for the 8,553 for our actuals, and also our year-to-date budget benchmark. I will move over to operating expenditures if there aren't any questions. On your packet, page 47, you'll see your operating expenditures. Our total expenditures for the first quarter was 49.9 million, and our year-to-date budget was 57.9. Again, as you know, when our revenues are down, our expenses will be down for imported and recycled operations. Move over to the following slide, page 48, and we can talk more about recycling. So here you'll see our actuals for recycling was about 12.6, and our year-to-date benchmark for the quarter was about 14.9. This is about timing of invoices when they come in, and of course, when we don't produce as much recycled water. Of course, I did check back with the operations group, and they did mention that the water quality was slightly better than expected, so we don't have those expenditures. If there are no questions, I will move on to our non-operating revenue and expenses. And if that starts on your packet, page 50, here you'll see our total non-operating revenue expenses was about 1.7 for our actuals, and our year-to-date budget was about 2.6. Here you'll see our fixed revenue charges. We did get a little bit more than we expected, just because I do want to remind you that when we were putting together our budget earlier this year, we did have some refinery agreements that we weren't sure what the outcome would be, so we couldn't budget those fixed revenue charges. Hence why you'll see even moving forward, our actuals will be greater than our budget. Last one would be packet page 51, and this will talk about our capital projects. Here you'll see our total for actuals was about 2 million, and our budget was 9.7 for the quarter. Again, this is about timing of when those projects will be completed. when those invoices get recorded as well.
Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Director Gray?
No, thank you.
B. No, thank you. Great reports. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that brings us to the final item of our information calendar, a monthly financial report from Sandra Ruiz, our accountant two.
Hi, good afternoon again. I am happy to present agenda item number 6D, which begins on packet page 54. As required by West Basin Administrative Code, staff is required to submit various financial reports to the Board of Directors to keep them appraised of the financial condition and future needs of the district. With that, we'll start with the demands list, which begins on packet page 56. This is for the period ending October 31st, 2023. The report concludes on packet page 61, and you will see that the total amount spent for the month is $18.3 million. The Metropolitan Water District bill is $11.9 million, which accounts for 65% of total spent for the month. One item of note that I wanted to point out was on packet page 58, almost to the bottom. Check number 91235 was a check issued to the LA Department of Water and Power in the amount of $194,000. And that was funds paid that were given to us by the DWR grant for the South Bay Gardena Recycled Water Pipeline Project. Other than that, I don't have any other items of note for the demands list of the month, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Director Deere? Director Gray?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is item 6D on packet page 62, and that's the cash and investment report for the period ending October 31st. You will see total market value is $71.1 million. To the right of that is a pie graph of the investments. California class accounts for 35.3 of the total amount of investments. The next page, packet page 63, is a bar graph listing the credit quality distribution with over 40% of investments rated at AAA. Next page, packet page 64, is a bar graph. The maturity distribution shows the portfolio continues to be highly liquid. Next page, packet page 65, is the transaction ledger for the month. And we had one call and one maturity for the month. Packet pages 66 lists all the investments with details, and the report concludes on packet page 76, where you'll see glossary terms and disclosures. And with that, I'll pause for any questions.
Director Deere?
No questions, thanks.
Director Gray?
No, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Move on, please.
Okay, the next item is the monthly water sales, and this was a handout that was given. So with that, we'll start with the top part of it, which is the imported retail for the month.
What page?
Wasn't in the packet, but it was a handout. It's up on the screen, Director Deere, as well.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
The imported retail for the month was 7,872 acre feet, which you can see is lower than last year and lower than the budgeted amount. We are still experiencing cooler temperatures. We believe conservation is still happening even though the drought is over. And that's really.
Yeah, as Allison pointed out, that we did learn that it's not just us, it's within the whole region of metropolitan water districts.
And to the bottom of that is the imported barrier graph, and total acre feet sold for October was 227. On the next page, we'll go over to the recycled water for the month. Total acre feet was 2,925. If you'll refer to the table below, you can see the breakdown. We'll start off with Barrier. Barrier was higher than budgeted and higher than what was.
Yay.
Yay. Yes. So hopefully that continues. Refineries was a bit down. I know there was some work done at Torrance, which led to some lower acre feet sold, but hoping to have that ramped up by next month. Disinfected tertiary is also down. Again, I believe that has to do with the weather and conservation still happening. Year-to-date budgets, we are falling in between year-to-date numbers last year and budgeted numbers. And with that, I'll pause to see if there's any questions.
Questions?
No question. Thank you.
Thank you. The last two items, 6DD, packet page 78 is the director's conference and travel expense through October 2023. And the final item, 6DE, on packet page 59 is executive management and staff travels through October 2023. And with that, that concludes the monthly financial reports.
Any questions?
No, thank you.
Please move on.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that concludes all of the information calendar. The next item on the agenda is item 7. It's our closed session, and we have no closed session items today, which would take us to number 8, director's comments and future agenda items.
Okay. Any director's comments, future agenda items? I don't see any.
Director Chair Williams, I just want to say thank you to staff for all the reports this morning. Thank you.
All right, well, we accept that then. Thank you very much. We like that. Dr. Deere?
No, thanks.
Okay, our next scheduled meeting, we're going to adjourn this meeting since there are none. And the next scheduled meeting is December the 11th. Expect to see you back. Thank you.